No role in crowd control or other customary police work. They have already detained a civilian who was trying to get into the federal building.
And that happened just minutes after those troops arrived, making this a sight that's rarely seen on U.S. soil.
For the first time since their controversial deployment, U.S. Marines in Los Angeles have detained a civilian. This incident marks a pivotal moment in the debate over military presence in U.S. cities. With tensions high and legal boundaries being tested, let's find out what's next. In an unexpected move, active duty U.S. Marines deployed to Los Angeles detained a civilian on Friday, marking the first known instance of domestic military intervention under Donald Trump's administration. The incident, confirmed by the U.S. military to Reuters after being presented with photographic evidence, occurred near the Wilshire Federal Building, where Marines had been stationed earlier in the day to secure the area. This rare deployment of troops on American soil follows days of escalating protests over controversial immigration raids and heightened political tensions. The detained individual, identified as Marcos Leal, is an Army veteran who was reportedly on his way to a Veterans Affairs office when he crossed a yellow tape boundary near the federal building. Video footage and images obtained by Reuters show Marines restraining Leal with zip ties before transferring him to Department of Homeland Security personnel.
I was trying to go to the VA and was trying to go across, and they told me to stop first. And of course I complied when I crossed the first checkpoint, and they told me to basically get down on the ground. Nothing wrong, just basically comply to everything they were saying. And it's just, we're at the worst time, worst situation where people are becoming more aggressive with what's going on, right? But as long as you feel like complied and everything worked, everything's natural, we're good and okay, and now I'm free to come back home. But the VA is closed. So everyone needs to know the VA is closed right now. The first time I went across under the yellow tape.
While military officials stated that active duty forces may temporarily detain individuals under specific circumstances, they emphasized that custody must be promptly handed over to civilian law enforcement. The incident has sparked immediate backlash, with critics questioning the legality and necessity of using military personnel for domestic law enforcement. Meanwhile, the Trump administration made headlines on multiple fronts Friday, further fueling nationwide unrest. Trump formally approved Nippon Steel's $14.9 billion acquisition of U.S. steel, framing the deal as a strategic partnership despite concerns over foreign ownership of a historic American industry. In Tennessee, State Representative Justin Jones accused the administration of pursuing politically motivated charges during a hearing for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a case that has drawn scrutiny amid broader accusations of government overreach. On the international stage, conflicting reports emerged regarding Trump's involvement in Israel's recent strike on Iran. While the president claimed full awareness of the operation, sources told The Atlantic that he had privately urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to avoid escalation, insisting a nuclear deal was still possible. However, an unnamed diplomat bluntly stated, "Israel just killed their negotiators," casting doubt on the feasibility of renewed diplomacy. Adding to the day's developments, the U.S. Agency for Global Media reportedly recalled Voice of America's Farsi service staff, signaling potential shifts in foreign broadcasting strategy. Meanwhile, social media footage from Los Angeles captured growing public fury over immigration enforcement tactics, with Border Patrol agents allegedly stopping individuals at random to demand proof of citizenship. As tensions mount, organizers are preparing for what could be one of the largest waves of anti-Trump protests yet, with nearly 2,000 demonstrations planned across the country on Saturday. The timing coincides with a military parade in Washington, D.C., celebrating the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army's founding and Trump's 79th birthday. With military deployments, immigration crackdowns, and geopolitical instability dominating headlines, the nation braces for another volatile chapter in an already contentious presidency. Marcos Leal, the 27-year-old Army veteran detained by the U.S. Marines in Los Angeles on Friday, has publicly addressed the incident after his release, offering a measured perspective on the encounter. Leal, who gained U.S. citizenship through his military service, described being stopped after crossing a yellow tape boundary near the Wilshire Federal Building while en route to a Department of Veterans Affairs office. Despite the unexpected detention, he stated that he was treated very fairly by the personnel involved. "They're just doing their job," said Leal, who is of Angolan and Portuguese descent, striking a conciliatory tone amid growing national debate over the military's domestic role. The Marines involved in the incident are part of a broader deployment of 200 active duty troops and more than 2,000 National Guard members currently stationed in Los Angeles, tasked with safeguarding federal property and personnel. That force is expected to grow significantly, with an additional 500 Marines and 2,000 National Guard soldiers set to reinforce operations in the coming days. Officials have confirmed that these troops will accompany Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents during raids, raising concerns about the militarization of domestic law enforcement.
Why you're saying you want this to be peaceful. Talk to us about the message.
Right. I don't think that we're not taking away from anyone's message. I think that there are lots of different ways people are protesting and showing dissatisfaction with what's happening. As clergy, this is how I show up to support. This is how my fellow clergy members, other people show up in different ways. We're creating an environment where people can see that we are united, we're supportive. We are here as faith members to show the sacred ways that we can gather and support the anger and the frustration of the people in this community.
Under current rules, military personnel are authorized only to temporarily detain individuals deemed a threat to federal assets or personnel, with the understanding that custody must be swiftly transferred to civilian police. The Posse Comitatus Act, a long-standing legal principle, prohibits the U.S. military, including the National Guard, from engaging in direct civilian law enforcement. However, the Trump administration retains the option to escalate its approach by invoking the Insurrection Act, an 1807 statute that would grant the president sweeping authority to deploy troops in a law enforcement capacity. Such a move, though rare, could dramatically alter the dynamic of ongoing protests and immigration enforcement actions across the country. Leal's detention has become a focal point in the debate over the military's expanding domestic presence, particularly as tensions rise over immigration policies and federal crackdowns. His remarks, emphasizing cooperation rather than confrontation, contrast with the heated rhetoric surrounding the administration's tactics. Meanwhile, the planned influx of additional troops suggests that the federal government is preparing for prolonged operations, further blurring the line between military and civilian policing. As legal scholars and civil rights advocates scrutinize the administration's next steps, the nation watches closely to see whether the boundaries of military engagement on U.S. soil will be redrawn. The streets of Los Angeles have become the center of a growing debate over the use of military forces on U.S. soil after a recent incident involving a civilian and deployed troops. According to a U.S. official who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity, a civilian crossed a designated boundary and was warned before being forcibly subdued. The official, not authorized to publicly discuss the matter, stated that the individual was given a clear warning before action was taken. This event has intensified concerns over the presence of active-duty military personnel in American cities, particularly as tensions remain high. Approximately 200 Marines, part of a larger deployment of 700, arrived in Los Angeles on Friday, reinforcing the 2,000 National Guard troops already stationed outside federal buildings this week. An additional 2,000 Guard members were placed on standby earlier in the week, signaling a significant escalation in security measures. The unusual decision to deploy Marines has prompted the Pentagon to hastily establish guidelines for troops who may find themselves in the rare and legally complex position of engaging with civilians on domestic soil. Military officials have emphasized that these forces have undergone training in de-escalation tactics, crowd control, and strict rules governing the use of force. Despite these precautions, the deployment has sparked serious questions about the long-term implications of such a move. Gary Solis, a former Marine Corps prosecutor and military judge, warned that this situation may foreshadow more troubling developments. When armed troops are positioned in close proximity to civilians going about their daily lives, the potential for conflict becomes inevitable, Solis stated. He further suggested that the deployment reflects a broader effort by the Trump administration to challenge the Posse Comitatus Act, a long-standing law that prohibits the use of active-duty military for domestic law enforcement. The increasing militarization of urban spaces has drawn sharp criticism from civil rights advocates and legal experts who argue that blurring the lines between military and police functions could undermine constitutional protections. As debates over public safety and federal authority continue, the presence of Marines and National Guard troops in Los Angeles serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between security and civil liberties. With tensions showing no signs of easing, many are left wondering what the future holds, and whether this unprecedented move will set a new precedent for military involvement in domestic affairs. Was this a necessary enforcement of the law or a dangerous overreach? Let us know in the comments what you think of the whole situation, and if you want to stay on top of this, smash that like and subscribe button.